second one, I'll sit next to you.
And then le tla tlisa.
So that you remember.
Okay.
Is
Ke tsa gore go tla mang gape.
there anybody else that you expect?
Police. Who will chair? I don't know if he will be able to get out.
Akazukwazi easily.
Akazokwazi. Mara, why would you leave for Deka?
Okay.
Font.
Can step in.
Nina somos nonke statement.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's putting to
Ke teng wena nna ke teng. Le kae ba go bona? Hai ntate di. Hey monna. Ma ba ne motho a ntlhasela ka ICC. Ntse re bua nyana ke motho a sa kgonne.
Good morning. Morning. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence today. This is the final in a series of discussions that we've been having on the policy documents towards the National Policy Conference of the African National Congress, which takes place from the 30th of June to the 5th of July this year at Nasrec. These briefings have been designed to ensure that we get as much exposure as possible to the policy documents of the African National Congress in order to provide an opportunity not only for members and structures of the ANC to engage the issues that are contained in it, but South Africans at large, so they're able to inform and direct policy of the ANC. So today our document that we're focusing on is the document on international relations. It will be presented by the chairperson of the ANC-NEC Subcommittee on International Relations, Comrade Edna Mulewa. With her is Comrade Maite Nkwana Mashabane, who is a member of the ANC-NEC Subcommittee on International Relations. Right at the end, next to her is Comrade Miriam Sohadze, who is also a member of the International Relations Subcommittee. On my right, Comrade Donovan Williams, a member of the ANC-NEC Subcommittee. So we will ask Comrade Edna to come and deliver the statement, and we will then open up an opportunity for engagement afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah. Yo.
Is that yours?
Is it mine? Thank you very much, Comrade Kusela, and also our members of the subcommittee present here. We would like to, first of all, welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen from the media. We also would like to greet everybody who's at home, because indeed through you as media, we can be able to speak to our people outside this room. We have prepared a statement for you, and I hope that you do have a copy, or you'll have it on your website, but we also take it that you have been able to read the documents, in particular the IR policy document, proposed policy document, which has been publicized for quite a while now. And therefore, the issues that we are talking about today are not new to you and not new to the nation as South Africa. We would like to, first of all, indicate that there is indeed going to be a need for South Africans and the members of the African National Congress at the policy conference itself to have a dialogue and come up with some proposals. But from our side, as we were looking at things in the document, we do not necessarily see any major shift currently in the policy, except to say there might be a few points that we highlighted in the policy document that where certain proposals may be needed, just about 2 or 3 of them. But all in all, we think that there is a need to really just ensure that we solidify and take our implementation to a higher trajectory. We are meeting here today as this subcommittee tabling these documents to the nation, mindful of the fact that we are really operating as South Africa and as a world in an unpredictable and uncertain world that is characterized by increased security and the rise of populism. In the context of that, we, in the document, are beginning to trace back the progressive internationalism, the historical mandate of the ANC. And perhaps as we do so, we first of all need to also echo the sentiments that were echoed by the SG this morning as he gave a message on behalf of all South Africans and the ANC in particular, with regards to the passing of our stalwart and our hero, Toivo Jatoivo. We really dip our banner and honor him, and we shall continue to honor him for what he did for this country, for his country, also for the continent, and indeed for the world. So we echo those sentiments of passing the message of condolence. And we do this as we remember this historical mandate of the African National Congress around a progressive internationalism, which the document also refers to. And very clearly, our historic mandate of progressive internationalism has shaped our current foreign policy outlook. We would like to confirm the centrality of Africa in our foreign policy, as well as our commitment to the agenda, African agenda, and that's what we state also in the policy document, as well as the realization of a peaceful and prosperous continent, as envisaged in Agenda 2063 of the African Union. We operate, obviously, within a policy context or within a context. And the context that we operate within and that which we actually wrote these documents from arises from several of our policy document overarching the National Development Plan, our outcomes of the Third International Solidarity Conference, the NGC resolutions on foreign policy of Ubuntu, and the resolutions of the respective leagues, as well as the Global Environment chapter of the African National Congress Strategy and Tactics, as well as the Ready to Govern policy. So that's a context within which that the policy document is actually shaped. Now, we, in the document, outline the balance of forces of the world, and we do think that it is important to state that we do not do this out of context again, because the balance of forces in that document, we'll have to look at that within the individual countries, as well as the regional and continental and global context, so that we can be able to analyze how we operate and moving forward. And also analyzing that, we look at the role that various forces play in shaping the agenda that protects the ideals of a world that is just, that is equitable, that is peaceful, and indeed prosperous. As you know, that this is actually what we stand for as the African National Congress on an international basis. What we are also saying here in the document is that we are beginning to experience, as part of analyzing the balance of forces, experience the resurgence of militarization throughout the world. But this is actually not only limited to the developed world, but it's also beginning to occur in the developing countries as well. And therefore fueling some form of conflicts in Africa, in Latin America, in Central and Eastern Europe, as well as in the Middle East. And furthermore, we also beginning to see the scourge of terrorism and violent extremist that is on the rise and constituting a major threat to international peace and security. And within the global governance that is under strain, due to geopolitics, and that is coupled with the rise of the right-wing parties and anti-establishment governments. It is critical, therefore, to analyze the global balance of forces if, indeed, as the African National Congress, we would like to succeed in whatever we do. This analysis continues to be important, so it's very clearly outlined in the document. The ANC is to, our mandate continues to be to fulfill our historic mandate, which is that of building a world of peaceful coexistence, of tolerance to diversity, of respect of the rule of law and sovereignty of states. And indeed, this stark contrast that we believe in is a stark contrast to the agenda that we see that perpetuates inequalities, intolerance of diversity, aggression, plunder and terrorism, poverty and underdevelopment. I'm saying much as we believe in this just world, there's a stark agenda, reality somewhere that's actually continuing to perpetuate these issues of inequalities and intolerance and so forth and so forth. Now, our document looks at the evolving global dynamic and the current geopolitics, and it also seeks to locate South Africa in the prism. Now, no discussion in the balance of forces would be complete without a critical analysis of the role of international law as a tool and indeed an instrument of governance. Now, we look at international law in all facets, in conventions, treaties, and protocol, and we say that it actually has to be based on equality of states, or rather respect of each and every state, sovereignty, respect for sovereignty, as well as fairness. So it says, in fact, that's what's expected in the international law. And that then says to us that international law must never, ever, at any given stage, be skewed towards a situation where you have the interest of the poorer countries being trampled upon by the poor, by the countries that have. And consistent with the NGC resolutions, colleagues and South Africans, is the next issue that I'm moving to, the withdrawal from the ICC by South Africa. This discussion document notes that South Africa has actually, and as the ANC we are leading this, has been involved in the processes, and certainly as a subcommittee we have been processing this, leading to the merger of the African Court of Justice and the African Court of Human Rights, strengthening them, let me rather put it that way, to review the mandate of the African Parliament as well, because we're looking at the parliamentary area as well, and to also operationalize the financial institutions such as the African Development Bank, which is intended to help the continent to craft our own homegrown solutions that are informed by clear-eyed analysis of our own reality and broader continental aspirations. Very, very important indeed. Now, coming to the issue that deals with the Better Africa and building the Better Africa, there would like to see, in the document we spell out that would like to see the realization of a prosperous, stable, and secure and peaceful Africa as an important objective of the ANC international relations policy, and indeed it is embedded in that. We therefore aim to strengthen the SADC region. We developing the number of social, economic, political policies and protocols that are suggested there to be firmed up, and also assisting the peaceful solutions of Africa's conflict. And we do believe that we must work with progressive movements on the continent to silence the guns by 2020. Very, very important indeed. As well as accelerating the continental integration so that we can bolster the economic growth for the movement, the betterment of the people's lives on our continent. We are also looking at, in the document, at strengthening the institutions of leadership an instrument that South Africa has been be beating above our weight. Indeed, it is not so. We do believe that we are really an equal partner and we are continuing to play a role. At the same time, we are alive to the changes in governments of our BRICS partners, such as in Brazil, and we will continue to assess how this could affect the cohesion in the forum in the near future if other members also end up at where Brazil is, but we hope that they will bounce back. We've just been in Brazil recently, a week ago. The African agenda must also continue to guide our engagement in forums such as the BRICS. And we're also banking on the BRICS Development Bank that shall become an alternative, we think, of the continent. South Africa is, as you know, is a host of one of the branches of that BRICS, and we are going to be really working hard to get that happening. And this is really intended to strengthen ourselves from an economic point of view, so that we actually have the necessary resources that are required. And our focus on the BRICS shall, however, not be construed as a negation of the relations with countries of the North. Let's make that clear, but we are also trying to be self-sufficient. And our understanding and approach is that these relations are not actually mutually exclusive. On the contrary, they actually could be very complementary. Now, I'm coming to the issue related to the ANC strategic role towards a better world. This discussion document underscores the importance of bridging the gap between the developed North and the developing South. And in this regard, South Africa and the ANC in particular's relationship through, obviously, the South Africa through the African National Congress, our relationship with the North and the US in particular remains very crucial. We note in the document as the African National Congress that the new administration in the US has not yet pronounced on its Africa policy, and to this end, we will adopt a very cautious approach of seeing what comes out of there, of course, and the renewal of AGOA is very, very important for us because it doesn't quite carry only chickens, by the way, carry quite a lot of other stuff in that AGOA. So we need to also reflect on the Brexit in our relationship with the UK and the future cooperation with the EU as a bloc. In this regard, we are monitoring the outcomes of various other member states' elections. We have seen just about a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, how it has gone in the UK. We are expecting France and others to come on, so we are continuing to monitor that as well. And our priority remains to strengthen our relationships with the formations of the North in order to address the global inequalities. And we must continue to implement the EU strategy as we have agreed to, EU-Africa strategy, and entrench the G20 countries' cooperation to stimulate shared growth and prosperity. Because indeed, the markets are out there. We should continue to ensure that our government follows those markets and have trade also agreed to with those countries. The African National Congress, ladies and gentlemen, is steadfast in its belief that the international system should be responsive to the needs of the developing country. We make no mistake about that. We don't beat about the bush on that. And we'll continue with our advocacy for the reform of the United Nations and its organs, in particular the Security Council in order for us to realize the objectives that we envisage. As I said earlier on, we are also in the document talking to parliamentary structures, and parliamentary solidarity is looked at in the document. And the discussion document calls for an increased role of parliamentarians in diplomacy through participation of forums such as the SADC, such as the Interparliamentary Forum and African Caribbean Pacific Parliamentary Forum, as well as the Pan-African Parliament. Coming to issues of economic diplomacy, the discussion document underscores the need for an holistic economic diplomacy strategy that is coordinated by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. You will notice that we have not been mentioning departments as we're moving. This is deliberate that we now mention a department, because this is a department that has got to help us to coordinate international work that we have to do. So for us to be cohesive, we identify this need for the economic diplomacy to be coordinated there. Economic diplomacy is an important component of our foreign policy. And the establishment of a new economic diplomacy in the department will enable us to take advantage of economic boom on the continent and improve trade relations with both traditional and newly identified markets. We are saying our government should do this, and it is also stated in that document. We are guided by the National Development Plan injunction to increase foreign direct investments, and therefore this makes it quite important. Regarding party-to-party solidarity on the continent and globally, we make a point that the global dynamic heavily influenced by the rise of the social movements that has precipitated the need to mobilize progressive forces towards building a world movement against new colonialism and structural global economic apartheid. And in this regard, we would like to ensure that we maintain solidarity with the oppressed people of the global south, and that must remain a priority for us. It's, as I said earlier on, that in some areas you will notice that we really would like to move the work that we do to a higher trajectory. And this is in line with the decisions that we took at the International Solidarity Conference recently of ensuring that we build this solidarity movement. The discussion document also affirms the ANC's position for the expansion of the international solidarity pillar in promoting peaceful resolution of conflict. And this is intended to achieve and forge, as well as maintaining relations with countries, individuals, and like-minded organizations through party-to-party relations and participation in multilateral forums to influence a progressive agenda for the benefit of humanity and the overall development of our society. Now, the discussion document also traces historical alliances that were formed to fight the scourge of apartheid, colonialism, and imperialism, and in the continent and other parts of the world. We assess the existence of these alliances, whether the solidarity networks that were used could be revived and strengthened, and continue with the solidarity work where we should really just relieve our people of the yoke that they carry right now. We further on in the discussion document call upon the utilization of the 40th anniversary of the occupation of Palestinian territories and in 2017 to renew our commitment to support the two-state solution. And similarly, we make a call for us to remain committed to the cause of Western Sahara. Morocco's readmission in the AU, obviously we have seen it happening. We do think that that matter needs to be attended to and addressed as we go on, obviously in government, to ensure that Western Sahara becomes a free country indeed, as it should. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the year of Oliver Tambo. So this policy conference will be taking place within that context. Our great internationalist, indeed a diplomat, who we will always remember in our minds as we formulate policy, as we do. And I would like to at this point in time, take this opportunity to thank you very much once again for coming. We have really tried to summarize at high level what is in the document, and hoping that you have read it and you will be together with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Edna. We are going to open for questions from members of the media. As we said right from the beginning, this document is being discussed, consulted with you. We'll also be raising it with various stakeholders that the subcommittee will be engaging. I'll take the first round of questions. I see a hand here. I'll take 5, and then I'll come back for a second round. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, Karina, and then I'll come back for another one. Thank you, sir.
My name is Peter Fabricius from Daily Matter. I just wanted to ask you about the position of the ANC and the government regarding the ICC. We know that the withdrawal was withdrawn because of the procedural issue that was pointed out by the courts. Is the ANC and is the government fully committed to continue with the withdrawal from the ICC following a new procedure, and if so, when will it happen?
Thank you. Number 2 at the back. Covered. Okay. Amanda, there's a question. Number 3 was... Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Belana Ahadi from Eyewitness News. The ICC one has been covered, of course, by the colleague here. But my question here is, has the current challenges of by the ANC, of course, in any way had the ANC's relation with the international community, in line, of course, with the international solidarity we talk of here? Are there perhaps the community engaging with you cautiously ahead of the policy conference and, of course, ultimately the December conference?
Okay, question, Chair? Sorry, can you just rephrase your question? You're saying our engagement with the international community? I'm not sure.
Basically, what I'm saying is we're talking of trading cautiously with other countries, of course, where the elections are headed and so on and so forth. Are there any signs that other countries are talking cautiously with you, of course, ahead of your policy conference, which is in a few
weeks' time? Okay,
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sophie Mkwena from the SABC. I just want to find out, South Africa has been characterized as a gateway to Africa. Currently, the ANC is the ruling party, but also leader in government. There are challenges. Is this not affecting the ANC, but also the government, in terms of positioning Africa on the global stage and South Africa taking a lead? Is this not perhaps something that's likely to affect South Africa's credibility as an alternative voice, but also as a powerful force on the continent to push for Africa's position on the global stage?
Sorry, Sophie, can I make a request that we don't assume that we're talking about the same challenges? Ne? So can you give us some sort of sense of what you want us to address?
I'm saying when a ruling party is faced with challenges, the ruling party is expected to give a leadership even in government. So I'm saying, as the ANC grapple with the challenges currently the party is facing, is this not diverting the attention of the ANC as the party that is supposed to give government direction on global stage? Are we not losing our position as a gateway to Africa, but a voice that is supposed to lead the continent on the global stage? Are we not weakened when we come to negotiations and perhaps discussions? We are expecting the leadership to go to the G20 very soon. Are we going to be taken serious?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Karen.
Karen, good to see freelance journalists. I have two questions. The one about the economic diplomacy unit. I just want to know how far are we in terms of establishing that, and does it involve retraining current diplomatic staff, or will it involve sending diplomats with economic sort of orientation to embassies? What exactly are the nuts and bolts of that? And in the peaceful resolution of conflict, or the silencing the guns 2020, I'm just curious to know what kind of work are we currently doing? I mean, I'm thinking, for instance, in the DRC, we did a lot of work 1999 onwards, helping them organize their elections. And we see that country kind of, I don't know, they're in a bit of a stalemate at the moment. Are we involved there? Are we envisaging restarting that dialogue? And also Zimbabwe is going to elections next year. Do we envisage doing anything there in terms of party-party relations to ensure that they've got a fair and peaceful election?
Okay. Can I take a lady next to you? We had one. You had a question, Emma? Oh, okay. All right. Come again. You'll also direct how you'd like them.
Yes,
Chairperson of the committee, let me stand up first so that I check if I still could remain standing, because we landed here in this country at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yes, don't ask where we took a bath, but we are here. Yes, and we were on time. South Africa. It's a nation that's very unique. It's a country built like a tapestry, interwoven with people from all walks of life and from all parts of the world. This is attested to by our constitution, that South Africa belongs to all who lives in it, irrespective of color or creed. South Africa is 23 years old. I'm talking about the true South Africa, not the new South Africa. Not so long time ago, 400 years ago, we almost became a European outpost in a land of Africa. So when we deal with these issues, we should start by just confirming that we are an integral part of this continent, Africa. We are Africans, we are the children of Africa, and there is no geographic barrier that divides us between Swaziland, Lesotho, Mozambique, or so on and so on. So we are Africans. Now, just to try and respond to some of the questions that were raised towards this committee. One was just putting that in mind. This leads to what led us to changing the name from Foreign Affairs to International Relations and Cooperation. Because the world is changing, and no singular country can do things on her own without depending on the other for something. But also because we are the children of O.R. Tambo, who always, and Johnny McCartney and many others who followed him, who always championed collaboration and cooperation and put that first before crisp materialism, which puts in competition. Crisp competition. You grab this from me, I grab that from you, and so on and so on. International solidarity taught us that we can achieve much, much, much more with that. Cooperation and collaboration. I also want to take this opportunity to join the chair in bending our flags lower, or lowering our flags in mourning the passing on of our father, Toivo from Namibia, who spent years and years of his life in Robben Island, fighting for South Africa's freedom and that of Namibia. I was on a train ride with him recently, and his wife. Oh yes, the last was at his the last inauguration of President Geingob, and we were on the same table. He looked sharp. I didn't know that was a goodbye meal, so it touched me on the wrong nerve a little bit because, as I said, we arrived this morning. We spoke, or some questions here that came from the floor, spoke of reality that we live in 2017. Geopolitical realities. This finds us still debating. You know, South Africans love debates. There's a bill in Parliament that has been going on for 17 years on national interests. National interests, remember that? In India, in the UK, in any other country that is democratic, issues of national interest are no longer debated. What do I mean by that? Two key things you don't play games around. It does not depend as to who is in power. Your foreign policy and your defense and security. That it's not debatable. That in itself links to national interests. National interest of a nation evolves. We do have our traditional allies. Traditional allies, for example, if I may be rude, in the developed world would be our socialist friends. But it doesn't mean that where they were in 1960 and the way they were thinking and feeling sorry for us and giving us clothes and stuff, that they still are where they were then. Because political sand and ground has also shifted in their own neighborhood. We are now a free country. We keep our old friends because we are a product of international solidarity and the product of our own people's struggles. But that doesn't mean that everything they say is according to St. Luke in the Bible. Because we now are a free country, we have to take care of our national interests. National interest today, for me, would also take to what are the challenges that we are grappling with in our region, in the SADC, and in the continent of Africa. By the way, Africa, it's made up of 12 times the size, in geographic size. You can bring 12 Indias as a country that will make, or even make half of what Africa is about. The country, India, can get 10, 12 times here, and still we will have more space. In fact, when you get back home and you're not here, you can turn around the map and read it appropriately. You will see what I'm talking about. So, because of this new dynamic and tectonic, be it political, be it economic, be it taking care of issues of national interest from all spheres, including fact that you do have aging population in many of other parts of the world. Only in Africa, the Africa we say is rising, and everybody agrees. Africa is rising. Why? Africa is the only continent that will be the biggest in terms of the population size in 2050. Every other continent's population would be shrinking, not us. Because we procreate, Chair. Yes. Appropriately. Yes. At home. Yes. So we need to also say what do we do how do we take advantage of the of this new dynamism that puts us on a good footing? That of being the biggest population with more than 500 million of those being young, agile, educated people who are not trained to become job seekers, but who also contribute to the growth of their respective economy within this Africa that is working very hard to integrate. Remember, the disintegration didn't come from us, but we are negating that through infrastructure development, through free trade areas, from the COMESA, SADC, EAC, now recently the other remaining Maghreb and ECOWAS, to then achieve the Africa Free Trade Zone. These things are not going to come for free. There are changes in the world. Because in diplomacy, you never have permanent friends. You only have permanent interests. So it means you move with that which makes you move and makes you relevant. That's why we are in the G20. That's why we are in BRICS. BRICS adopted its first political document which was like almost like BRICS was being formed for the first time when they were holding their fourth BRICS summit, because we came. The Sanya principles were adopted with South Africa. When we asked, they said, we were waiting for you to come. Next year, 2018, in fact, from September 2018, from September 2018, South Africa is taking over at the ministerial level the chairship of BRICS. So the 10th anniversary of BRICS. Remember the conceptual note of a BRICS forming its own bank, new development bank, started here in South Africa 5 years ago. Now, we can look at you in the face and say the bank is alive. And we have an address. The Africa Regional Center is not only this only. It's not only the other center. This is the first center of the African, of the new development bank outside its headquarters, Shanghai. That's why we will have this here. There is no other country that has a regional center than us. So we believe that by end of June will be concluded that work. At the G20 meeting of Ministers of International Relations and Foreign Affairs, some document was smuggled on our tables, written Marshall Plan for Africa. We declined to debate that. And then it disappeared. It supposed to come from the EU. We don't know. Now it's coming back in different guises. In some places it's called Impact Africa. Let's say, for example, G20 is being hosted by Germany this year. Compact Africa and how Germany deals with African countries. Germans have more than 600 companies operating safe here in this country. So they don't need a compact to, if they want 1,000 companies to locate here, fine. 2,000, okay. So that doesn't depend on that. Multilateralism. Multilateralism is our mother. Multilateralism is Bandung. Multilateralism gave us many other things that we thought were impossible. For us, if multilateralism dies, United Nations, ceases to exist. So we should fight for multilateralism to remain relevant in our international politics. The withdrawal of South Africa from the ICC. Those who know law better than me, not a law person, says that the courts judged against the procedure, that is, what should have come first before what happens. So we are not giving you the details of that because we are not in the courtroom. We will follow what the laws of the land say we should do. But politically, ICC, I've been there thrice, 122 members, only 6, 7, or 8 ministers attend the Assembly of State Parties. And all of them will be from developing world. What happens at the Assembly of State Parties? This is where you amend, correct, upgrade, and so on and so on. 3 of the members of the Security Council, permanent members, are not members of the ICC. We are watching AGOA because we have to. AGOA is not a negotiated something. It's a gift to the world, or particularly developing world, from the Americans. Brexit. 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, Madam May got a fractured mandate to continue negotiating or to start negotiations on whether they should leave Brexit or not. Now, this happens just a month, or happened just a month or 2 afterward. We were celebrating here in the developing world, or celebrating the EPAs, remember? EPAs. When we finished, before the ink became dry, then there was Brexit. Then there was snap elections. So it depends on us whether we're going to spend 2 years renegotiating with one country, and then it fails, and then we go back to EPAs, and so on and so on. That's why I said in diplomacy, there are no permanent friends, but permanent interests. Do we need a standalone economic diplomacy department? We have got so many departments of economy this, economy that. We need to train and retrain our diplomats when we post them abroad. By the way, diplomats are not only ambassadors. And also, maybe let me also say, DICO is not a place where people who are tired must come. We want people who are still very agile, who can take many other elements of diplomacy serious. So, economic diplomacy, regular update and training every year. If all our diplomats don't come to Pretoria, I travel around, or whoever is the minister, travel around to their regions to engage with them for 3 or 4 days every year. This year they're not coming home. We are going around the world talking to them. But the toolkits, we derive or we design the toolkits on economic diplomacy, region by region, working together with all the economic cluster ministries. 50 years of occupation to Palestine, two-state solution is still our answer, or is still our foreign policy. Sahrawi in Morocco and in AU, we did not chase Morocco away. Morocco walked away when Sahrawi came. If the problem can be solved quicker, much and faster, when they are all in the room, much the better for us. But there is no other African country that's going to be occupying the other in terms of articles that brought about the AU, which was transformed in this country in 2002. So no one is going to replace the other, and no one is going to occupy the other. But they can both find space in the same room, and we can all discuss our challenges in that, under that one roof. Thank you.
Can I finish? Okay. Thank you very much, Comrade Maite, Minister. Just let me also add to this issue of the ICC as the first question that was asked by Daily Maverick. Comrade Maite says that the procedural aspect is what was found against in court. Would like to confirm that. You would recall that for the ANC subcommittee, as we are here, the mandate to withdraw from the ICC was taken, is derived from our own structures, the NGC. And as at this point in time, there has not been any review of that mandate. In that regard, as a subcommittee, we have been going on, and we understood that mandate to be saying, as we withdraw from the ICC, and I'd like South Africans to listen carefully here, we need to ensure that we consult at the AU level, which thing has been happening throughout the time since the decision was made. We also needed to ensure that there's a discussion at ICC level on some possible amendments of the statutes, which matter has also been ongoing. I'm sure you have had one of our brilliant lawyers who's in this room, together with Dr. Devet, at that committee, also having to defend South Africa on some of the issues there. So our presence has always been there as well. So the discussion is ongoing there and has been ongoing. I must say that we have, some of us have actually, with the minister, we had personally had discussions with other countries of the EU, recall it the Britain, where we discussed a matter related to the amendment of these statutes, related to the issue of, what do you call that? The fact that we can allow some of the presidents to visit South Africa, like the story of al-Bashir, what do you call it, immunities, issue of immunities. That part that deals with immunities is the issue. So we have had discussions with several countries about that, for that area to be amended. If we could be helped and the court could focus on that amendment, it could just be. Yeah. Anyway, we also had to deal with the issue of strengthening the African instruments. That is now the African courts. That work is ongoing right now. So what I'm really saying to you is that we are not just sitting. Remember that South Africa and the ANC has never said that we could ever be heard or seen to be allowing any form of impunity. And this is the reason why our mandate is clearly to ensure that we strengthen the African instruments here so that those who are found not being on the side of the law, being heads of states or whoever, can actually be taken through that process. So that work is ongoing. At government level, I can confirm that we have processed those issues. There are some follow-ups that are happening in terms of amending some of the statutes or the decisions, the Malabo decision, for instance, that allows people, ordinary citizens, to not see the instruments of a particular country and even our country being the courts of first instance. So we need to have in the Malabo amendment the courts of first instance, and then only then can people move to the other areas like ICC or whatever, if it's and the African instruments. There's a question that came quite several times about the challenges of the ANC. We are, on the contrary, being told that South Africa, we really need you. We honor and respect all your role in various fora, wherever we go. I mean, I've just come out of the meeting of several others at the United Nations, at the Conference of the Oceans, many others. People say that your role can never be underestimated. So I don't think people can say that when in fact they are also saying at the same time that South Africa's role could be diminished or they are worried. They do know that as a matter of fact, much as we may be having those challenges, we are continuing to function at government. Internationally, we are continuing to perform our tasks, and we are continuing to play our role and to take our rightful space. Where we have to provide leadership, we are doing so. So there's no effect, really, I think. The next other question, really, that's Auntie Sophie asked is about, it's the same as that one, I think, the gateway being the gateway. Just the last question. You asked if we have been playing a role in, and I thought Minister was going to touch on this part, in the role that we are playing in the DRC, in silencing the guns and so forth and so forth. Indeed, there is still that work that's ongoing. There's, as we are speaking, to date, South Africa has served in 14 international peace operations, including 7 UN peacekeeping missions, and most prominently in the DRC that you mentioned. You have seen us playing a role in Lesotho recently that led up to the elections a few days ago, successful elections. And we are also continuing with our bilateral relations with many other countries. We are continuing to monitor peace processes in other countries. We really think that that role is continuously being played in Sudan, South Sudan as well. I'm sure you know that. So I'm really saying, in short, that role has not been diminished. If anything, it actually is increasing of silencing the gun, and we do think that we are really making an impact. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, I think most of the questions have been handled and managed. So I won't, as I say, the media reports the news, they don't make the news. I mean, that's what I've learned. So I can't tell them that I hope that they won't just focus on the ICC matter when reporting it, but I can't tell them that, so I won't. I think it's important because I think there are other parts of the document that are quite important and should be elevated. And some of it has been raised in a manner speaking through the questions by the members of the media, and I must thank them for them. The one which is, Edna just addressed now in a certain way is about the current challenges, and I'll come to that last. But firstly to say, Ma'am Sophie, when you raised the issue of South Africa being a gateway to Africa, if we have said South Africa is the gateway to Africa, we would be incorrect. Because if South Africa is the gateway, then the ANC is the gatekeeper. We are not a gatekeeper, we are not a gateway to Africa. We regard ourselves as part of Africa. So an opportunity for South Africa is an opportunity for Africa. A setback for South Africa is a setback for Africa. A setback in any part of this continent is a setback for South Africa. That's how we look at it. So when, because of our status and our stature, when we are invited to different forums, we are influenced by how can Africa benefit. Because when Africa benefits, South Africa benefits. But not because we exploit or we look at deprivation and poverty in Africa as an opportunity for South Africa. That's not the way we operate. And that's what informs us in this document very, very clearly. And hence, therefore, when we participate in any forums, be it an ICC, be it any matter like that, when we realize that our actual presence there is hurting Africa, we have to reassess. We have to say, but by us participating in this, we're actually not helping our overall objectives, which have come back when we had greater challenges, when we were just a few hundred people outside this country, wondering what's going to happen. We still, and this is why when you raise challenges, it becomes one wonders. We still, although we had those challenges, we still were informed by the balance of forces within the international world, within the continent, and within South Africa. It didn't change because our powers were less or more. And I think that's quite important, and which comes to the understanding this policy document brings to the fore. Those who have been going through ANC documents over time, in the international perspective, including the strategy and tactics document, would know that the ANC characterized the world in terms of a bipolar world within the Cold War, etc., and then, post-millennium or post-94 as a multipolar world. Now in a post-global world, and this document comes out clear to say, and this goes with the challenges, that we are not necessarily a multipolar world. There aren't different poles, like they are equal. It's diffused power. It's power that permeates different parts. And because of the neoliberal agenda that has taken globally, the real challenge, including for ourselves, is that the challenge of neoliberalism has resulted in anti-establishmentism. It's populism, as we saw with the Arab Spring, to be anti-establishment, to be anti-government. That's what attracts people, because the neoliberal agenda has made people poorer. It has worked only for the elite. So on the basis of that, when we characterize this world through this document, we are saying that the challenges we are experiencing is because of this popularity of anti-establishmentism. And this popularity of anti-establishmentism is because we haven't seen to the needs of the poor. So when we participate within the international arena and when we interpret our international policy at a local level and vice versa, it is about tackling that populism with the understanding that power is diffused. It acts through different agencies, and the only way you counter that is through popularity of people, by participation, a people's democracy, which we've always believed in, people-centered and people-driven. So in that regard, that's how our document is constructed, and that's what we bring new to the problematique. However, if you restrict it just to how we ICC, or is it our challenge within the country with what we read, when you read yourselves, in other words, that if we restrict it to that, we'll lose this advancement of what we are putting forward. And I hope you will look at it differently in that way. And just finally to say that we will continue to participate in all the peace processes as mandated by the multilateral bodies, be it SADC or the AU, so that includes the DRC or Burundi and so forth. Our advice continues to be asked for within our continent as well as globally on peace processes. And many of our comrades, some of them now retired and so forth, who have served in government and that continue to play a big role across the world in assisting peace processes. And just with those last remarks, then I'll sit down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the comrades in the panel. We do have about 15 minutes left, so I can take a final round of questions. I'm going to request that you don't follow the example of the panel, so make it nice, short, and sweet. Okay. I see a hand, number one. Let me take the ones who haven't spoken first. Number one, number two here. All right, and then I come back to you, sir, number three, and then Sophie, you'll give us the final question. In that order, please.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my question. It's phenomenal from age. I just wanted to go back to the issue of the ICC. The chairperson of the committee said that the mandate, or rather at ANC level, the mandate to withdraw from the ICC remains as is. But at government level, it seems as if the mandate has been reviewed because South Africa has revoked its intention to withdraw from the ICC. So I think what my colleague from the Daily Maverick and myself and perhaps others would want to know is that with the High Court blocking South Africa's intention to withdraw from the ICC, is this where the matter ends, or will any further attempts be made to withdraw from the ICC?
Okay, I think we'll clarify that one again. There's a question here.
Thank you, good morning. My name is Tari from Ubuntu Radio. I just want to find out how we're going to make sure that Agenda 2063, as it is right now, we do not lose momentum. We have seen a lot of examples, a lot of engagement on Agenda 2063 document over the past years. One will obviously see that there was a lot of engagement with the African Union through the fact that Dr. Nkosazana was the chair of the Commission. That how we're going to make sure that Agenda 2063 is maintained, the plan is maintained, even if we do not have that representation on that level as well, through our Foreign Service Bill and also through this document as well.
Thank you. In front.
Thank you. I wonder if I could ask the ministers.
Yeah, it's on.
About Lesotho. There was some concern before the election.
I can hear you. Please proceed, yeah.
Some concern before the election that the military might not accept the victory of the Tom Tabani ABC party and coalition. Does that concern still remain? And if so, what is South Africa doing to address it?
Thank you. Then Ms. Sophie.
I just want to check with Minister Mashaban on the rating agencies. There was a proposal that BRICS must establish a rating agency. How far is the process? And when you interact with the international community, what is the view on the rating agency? And then Edna, on climate change. Donald Trump has taken a decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. Are you engaging the US to try and persuade them to reconsider their position?
Within the context of the international relations document.
That's what international relations is all about, reaching out.
Thanks. We'll take one last question from Karine next to you. Thanks.
Just you again, just the last question. The African Union, what's the name? We saw her exiting in January. And I'm just wondering if the ANC, because it's mentioned in the policy documents, but will there be a kind of a post-mortem to see if we have achieved what we wanted to achieve by pushing her candidacy? Will there be like a kind of, yeah, just evaluating what our performance was there?
Thank you very much. Okay.
Well, I'm sure as you are a deployee of the African National Congress, you are expected to be evaluated. But the AU, the continent, had already made that job easier by giving her unsolicited extension of 6 months. Remember, she was supposed to have come home last year? Almost 40 countries just put down their pens and did not vote. So we did not get a candidate. And truth be told, if they had their way, they'll still have her there. When she is evaluated, we will say she arrived in the AU just a year or so before we celebrated 2013, the 50th anniversary of the AU. When she came back home with a booklet, I don't know if you've seen it, of the Africa we want, championed by the 7 aspirations that will make Africa of 50 years now onwards, Funky, how old will I be? 100? Yes. Yes. Where will Africa be? Africa's dream is to become a fully developmental, fully self-reliant, and at the same league with all other major players. The first 50 years of our struggle was for decolonization of our forebears. This one, it's a fight on economic diplomacy. What I should have said earlier, and I was told we had problems of time, and I'm sure the chair was correct, was, let's be honest, the economic model we are using today, be it in developed or developing countries, doesn't seem to be working for all of us. This was designed in 1945, and that's why we have unemployed, educated youth in developed countries and developing countries. That's not the question you asked, but that's what I forgot to answer earlier. BRICS ministers of finance met in India a few months ago and adopted unanimously that they are going to present in China in the next BRICS summit a proposal that BRICS should have their own rating agencies. Who are these rating agencies, by the way? We respect them a lot. Please say so. But I also learned recently that we also pay. We pay to be rated. The last I'm told we paid was 81 million per annum, just to say, check me, and then tell the world if I'm alive and in good standing or not. So it's not a for the Christmas. You pay to be rated. Procedurally, the mandate of the ICC started this way. In earlier, the years of Madiba, when indeed somebody said we thought we could walk on water, because everybody was receiving us. We thought, and we are not regretting that we will never, as the chair had said, downplay impunity, lack of democracy, maiming and killing people here and there, and so on, so on, so on. But we've seen Palestinians being maimed, killed, dispossessed of their homes, and so on, so on, and nothing happens. Palestine is a member of the ICC. Absolutely, not even the first investigation has gone to check whether what they're saying is true or not. Afghanistan, another case. But I said to you earlier on, at the meetings where we're supposed to discuss these issues, ministers, leaders of countries do not attend those meetings. We're supposed to have annual meetings every year in December called ASP, Assembly of State Parties. So they do not, almost all developing countries, ministers do not attend. If you find ministers there, they come from developing countries, Latin America largely, and from Africa. The example we have of a serious challenge you've had in this continent is that of Mali, which was resolved by ECOWAS, the outcome of an election in Mali, by ECOWAS and the AU. The second one was the trial of Hassan Habre, the dictator from Chad. Not trialed by the ICC, but by the AU. And hence the chairperson has emphasized earlier on that we are in the business of strengthening our own Africa institutes. I think that's where we should be. We're not saying against the ICC, but we find more response or quicker response this way. What was this thing that did not happen in Parliament? It was said that we technically did not take the process of withdrawal to Parliament first before we wrote to the UN. So I, or the Minister of International Relations, withdrew the letter to wait for the parliamentary process to go on. Sitting here between the last National General Council of the ANC and now, there is no change of the ruling party on this matter or on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In short, the process is going on in government as well as in parliament to fulfill the mandate of the organization. I did say earlier on, I emphasized certain things that needs to happen. Consult with the AU, that work is done. Discuss the possible amendment of the statutes, that work has been going on. Strengthen the African instruments, that work is going on. Why were we concerned? The reasons have not vanished, by the way, why we needed to move out of the ICC. If anything, that will actually get the reasons to vanish. That will have to be evaluated elsewhere. But for now, we are implementing. That's what we should say. We are obviously going to be taking South Africans on board, and South Africans are along all the way, all the step of the way as we move on. Agenda 2063 is going to be continuously implemented and maintained and sustained. There can't be any compromise. How we do that ourselves here, just let me give an example. As South Africa, we know that our government has aligned Agenda 2063 with the National Development Plan, has aligned the Agenda 2063 with the Sustainable Development Goals, meaning that all the work that we do as South Africa on a continuous basis of implementing the SDGs and the NDP is a continuation of implementing Agenda 2063. And that's then evaluated on a continuous basis at the AU level, at a country level. We do know that this work of alignment is also done at other countries' level. We work with other colleagues who are aligning SDGs and their national plans with 2063. So in that way, this legacy of one of our own, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and all of us working together will be sustained in that way. The issue of very quickly, will there be an evaluation? That's how evaluation is done. The climate change issue, yes, we are persuading other countries, by the way, as well, to persuade, together with all of us, to persuade the Americans, maybe not in a form of saying, come back, but to really say that they have a role to play as part of the international world. They were part of the agreement, they were part of the negotiations, and we do need to see the leadership role of the Americans as one of the highest emitters of the world, not just in a form of money, but also in reducing their own carbon emissions as well. So that work, we may not be able to tell what the results will be right now, because indeed, let's also face it, the gap has always been there, even with the role of United States. So the gap is going to grow bigger if they continue to withdraw. And we are evaluating next year an assessment period post-2020 before we actually implement to analyze and assess the gap. So we hope that sanity will prevail at some stage. I want to just say, as I conclude, that as we speak, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma is traveling to a country to actually receive an award. Copenhagen, to receive an award on energy advocacy. One of the things that we can say has been a success story. We have an AU strategy in place on agriculture. We have Agenda 2063. We have functionality of admin, coordination at all levels right now. I mean, at face value, even before the formal evaluation can sit, as the Minister said, that evaluation does happen for every individual who's a public servant. But we can already say these are some of the things that we know and that we see with our own eyes. We will continue to implement the programs to ensure that we have a peaceful world, a peaceful Africa, a prosperous Africa, and indeed play our most important role in ensuring that we take our rightful place in ensuring that the poverty is alleviated or even eradicated throughout the world, throughout the continent. The balance of forces as we see them, we will continue to engage with other countries of the world where we see the emergence of some other form of new parties and so forth. In our document, by the way, we are also talking about how to relate to those other countries which are not necessarily where the sand has actually shifted, as the sand has shifted. So just how we should relate, because we can't say, no, there's an emergence of some other party that we see otherwise, and therefore we don't go there. So our analysis is intended to say, how do we then engage on a continuous basis to work together as forces of the world? Thank you very much. Oh, Lesotho, yeah. There's a Lesotho issue that, Minister, it was supposed to be yours, this particular question. Concerns that the military may not accept. I think as far as we know right now, there is an ongoing process of setting up the government. The election results have been announced. We haven't been officially informed of any other thing that is otherwise. So we take it that Lesotho's election has gone ahead, and there will be that acceptance. Of course, we'll obviously support and continue to monitor the situation and support the Basotho in their endeavor to find permanent peace. Thank you very much.
But there's the addition, Minister, so that I don't let you astray. You don't have to go away. We had made it quite clear in a SADC summit that not in any corner of our sub-region or SADC, not in any corner of our continent will we ever tolerate a military coup. So this was made very, very clear to everyone, including the Basotho, 2 years ago. Remember, they've just been through an election a year and a half ago. And they have also undertaken that they will go back to the reforms, which they themselves say bedevil focus on governance. The reforms of the role of the police and the army in that particular country. So, but the cool thing, I think it is as clear as mud that we will not allow it to happen, not in our backyard. That's not a threat, it's just the way it is. Thank you.
Well, on that note, let's thank all of you once again for participating not only today but throughout the series of these discussion documents and the presentation of it. We know that the conversation will continue with Comrade Edna Mulewa on social media from 12 o'clock, where she'll be taking questions from a broader audience just on issues around the discussion document on international relations. We look forward to seeing you at the policy conference starting on the 30th of June to the 5th of July. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade.
Done? Thank you very much. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can go get some rest. Mama, I put your phones on silent, no?
Yes, no, that's
You had something to eat earlier, no?
Yes, no, I did.
Okay.